If you're avoiding one underperformance conversation, you're already paying for it. You're paying with your time, your patience, the standards your team starts to copy, and the quiet resentment you carry home at the end of the day. I want this video to make that conversation easier, not softer, instead clearer, because underperformance is rarely a single issue. It's usually a pattern that's been left too long, and by the time you're ready to address it, you're already frustrated, which means you're more likely to get it wrong. So in the next few minutes, I'll walk you through how to diagnose what's really going on, how to open the conversation without drama, what to say when they get defensive, and how to leave with a plan that actually sticks. Let's start with what most managers get wrong. Managers tend to go in too late, too emotional and too vague, or they do the opposite. They go in armed with solutions and skip the one thing that matters most, understanding the cause. Poor performance isn't a single category. It's usually one of two things, ability or motivation, and if you treat an ability problem like a motivation problem, you'll apply pressure. You'll sound harsher than you mean to, and you'll make things worse. Here's what that looks like in practice. Imagine someone's missing deadlines. If it's an ability issue, maybe they don't have the skills, the resources, or the training they need, then putting more pressure on them won't fix it. It'll just stress them out and probably make them perform even worse. But if it's a motivation issue, they've got the skills but they're disengaged, distracted, or resentful, then offering more training won't help either. You'll waste time and money on a solution that doesn't match the problem. Before you say a word to them, you need to determine which one it is, and here's how you do that. Step 1. Get specific on what's not happening. Write down 3 facts, not opinions, facts you could evidence. For example, the last 3 deadlines were missed. 2 client emails went unanswered for 48 hours. The error rate has doubled in 4 weeks. Keep it clean. If you start with labels like lazy or careless, you lose your footing, because you're making it about their character, not their performance. And once you do that, they'll get defensive and you'll end up in an argument instead of a conversation. Step 2. Ask yourself one question. Is there a strong effort but weak output? If yes, think ability first. They're trying but something's blocking them. If no, and the effort is patchy, it might be a sign of motivation. Or it might still be ability, disguised by avoidance. Some people avoid tasks they don't know how to do, and that looks like they can't be bothered when actually they're embarrassed or overwhelmed. Either way, you don't assume, you ask, and that's where preparation comes in. This part is what protects your tone, because if you go into this conversation unprepared, you'll say things you regret. You'll be vague when you need to be specific. You'll be harsh when you meant to be firm. And you'll leave without a plan because you didn't think about what a plan should look like. So here's what you do. Choose a private space, block enough time, because this can take longer than you expect. And if you've got another meeting booked straight after, you'll rush it and mess it up. Then decide your purpose in one sentence. Here are a few you can borrow. I want to understand what's driving the dip. I want to be clear on what good looks like. I want to agree a plan and a review date. That's it. No lectures, no long build-up, just one clear purpose. Because if you don't know why you're having the conversation, they definitely won't. Most managers start with tension. They shuffle papers, they over-explain, they apologise for calling the meeting. And all of that signals to the other person that this is going to be painful, which makes them defensive before you've even started. Try this instead. Thanks for meeting with me. I want to talk about your work performance. I want to be clear on why we're meeting, then hear your view. That does 2 things. It sets context and it signals this is a 2-way conversation, not a telling off. Then you share the facts. I've noticed the last 4 to 6 weeks look different. Your results have dropped in these areas. Then stop and ask an open question. What do you think is behind that? This is where many leaders rush. They ask the question, but don't actually wait for the answer. They're so uncomfortable with the silence that they start filling it with their own theories. Don't let them talk. Your job is to listen for the root. Here are questions that help you get there. What's getting in your way right now? What feels harder than it used to? What's changed in the work or outside work? What support do you need to do this well? Notice the structure of those questions. They're not accusatory, they're exploratory. You're genuinely trying to understand, not trap them into admitting fault. And that matters because if they feel trapped, They'll shut down. And if they shut down, you get nowhere. If you have feedback from others, handle it carefully. You might say, I've had some feedback from people you work closely with. This is what they're experiencing. What's your view on that? Keep it calm, no ambush energy, because the moment they feel like you've been gathering evidence behind their back, trust breaks, and without trust you can't fix performance. Now, 2 everyday moments that throw people. Moment 1, they get defensive. They might say, everyone is under pressure, or you're only picking on me. Don't argue, bring it back to the shared goal. I understand, pressure is real, and I still need the standard met. Let's focus on what has to change from here. What you're doing there is acknowledging their feeling without agreeing with their excuse. Because if you argue with everyone is under pressure, you end up in a debate about who has it harder, and that's not the point. The point is that the standard hasn't been met. Moment 2, they get upset, tears, shame, silence. You don't need to fix their feelings. You need to stay respectful and steady. Try this. I can see this is landing heavily. Take a moment, pause, then. I'm not here to attack you. I'm here to get this back on track. That pause is important. It gives them space to compose themselves, and the reassurance afterwards reminds them this isn't personal. It's about the work. Now let's move into the plan. This is where most performance conversations fail. They end with hope. Hope is not a strategy. You need 3 things: clarity, actions, follow-up. Clarity means you state expectations in plain language. Not be more proactive. Instead, by Friday, I need the client responses within 24 hours. By next Wednesday, I need the report submitted by 2 p.m. Each order needs a double check before it goes out. See the difference? The first one is vague, the others are measurable. You can check whether they occurred, and that's what you need. Actions depend on the cause. If it's an ability, start with support. Do they need resources, training, a reset of priorities, a smaller scope while they rebuild confidence? Be specific about what you'll provide and when. If it's motivation, you still stay practical. Set goals. Remove blockers, make consequences clear, and make sure they understand what's at stake, not in a threatening way, in a factual way. If this doesn't improve, we'll need to move to a formal process. I don't want that. But I also can't leave it as it is. Then agree on your review. Don't wait 3 months. Book a short check-in within 1 to 2 weeks and write it down. Even at the informal stage, document what you agreed, what improvement looks like, and when you'll review it, because memory's unreliable, especially when emotions are involved. And if they come back in 2 weeks and say, I didn't know you meant that, you need to be able to say, here's what we wrote down together. Now, a quick word on formal steps. Many issues can be dealt with informally, especially early. But if there's no improvement, or the risk is high, or the likely outcome could involve a warning or more serious action, that's when you move into your formal process with HR guidance and your policy. The mistake I see is that leaders either jump too formally too fast, or they avoid it for months, then panic. The middle path is best. Start early, be clear, follow through, and here's a simple closing script you can use. So here's what we've agreed. These are the standards. These are the actions. This is the date we'll review progress. If the improvement isn't there, we'll need to move this forward formally. That's kind and clear. It stops confusion. It also protects you. If you do end up having to take formal action, you can demonstrate that you gave them every opportunity to improve. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, I know what to do, but I still dread it, you're not failing. You're human. Underperformance conversations trigger fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as harsh. Fear of getting it wrong. For many managers, there's also the fear that addressing it could lead the person to leave, and then you're left with a gap in the team and all the hassle of recruitment. But here's what I know. Every time you avoid it, the problem grows legs. It spreads into the team. Other people notice. They see that poor performance gets tolerated. They adjust their standards accordingly. Or they get resentful because they're carrying an extra load. Either way, your culture takes a hit, and it becomes harder to fix because the longer you leave it, the more entrenched the pattern becomes and the harder the conversation gets. So start with one conversation. The one you've been circling, the one that's keeping you up at night or making you avoid that person in the corridor. Plan it properly. Use the structure I've given you and have the conversation, because once you handle that one well, the next one gets easier, and the one after that, until eventually addressing performance early becomes part of how you lead, not something you dread. That's when you stop firefighting and start leading.